Hello there and welcome to another Coffee with Colin, and thanks for tuning in. My goodness, what a week. Strangest week ever. And I'd like to tell you some of what went on this week, if I may. First we had Mick. A lot of you would have heard about Mick last week or read about Mick last week. Mick upset me, and it would appear I upset Mick back, and he decided to unfollow me. So you might imagine my surprise when I wrote about Mick last week after him unfollowing me to get an email from him almost immediately saying that, look, you used a pseudonym, but I realised that that's me, and he wanted to reiterate his apology that he had made to me, which I had published in the blog, and I've done so again this week for any of you that didn't pick up on Mick's story. Interestingly, I was saying last week that my blogs get about 1,000 views per week, and Mick's story seems to have caught the zeitgeist out there, because 5,000 people so far have read Mick's story, and so I'm sort of grateful to Mick for upsetting me and allowing me to put it out there. And I think I know I learned lessons from my interactions with Mick. I hope Mick did too, and I'm confident that some of the 5,000 people out there that came across his story have done so too. It was an interesting week in Carambola's history. One of the things that I love to do is get out there and talk to kids, and I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to 5th and 6th class kids as often as I can. I talk to them about leadership and responsibility. I talk to them about the fact that they are the oldest in the school, they're the tallest in the school typically, they're looked up to by all the younger kids in the school, and therefore they need to take that responsibility seriously, because whatever they choose to do, good or bad or right or wrong, the younger kids are taking their lead from it. And as part of that, I get to tell them Stephen's story, and Stephen's story is a story about a boy who was bullied for about 7 years and woke up at age 15 in 3rd year and decided that he couldn't actually go on. Things had to change that day, and I've told Stephen's story before. I put a link to Stephen's story at the bottom of the blog. And so while I'm out there in the field, I'm allowed and able to do that, and blessed to be able to do it, but I'm allowed to do it because over the years we've managed to train people in Carambola to handle a lot of the stuff that goes on in the course of feeding Johnny, as we say. And it reminded me of in the early years we had an issue with black bananas. Bananas, for those of you that don't know, go black if they're in a fridge that's too cold or in a fridge for too long. And so we had, back in the day when we started out, we had problems with black bananas because our business model is such that we produce Johnny's lunch today, we put it in from fresh ingredients, we put it in the fridge overnight and deliver it to Johnny in the morning for consumption day 2. So produce day 1 for consumption day 2. And back in the early days, periodically we'd get a principal ring us and say, Johnny's horrified because his banana is black, and we had to figure out what the problem was, and had to fix it and all those things. But the bigger issue with the black banana, because it's not a health and safety issue, it's just unsightly. A bigger issue was that black bananas had the effect of pulling me back in. I'm the founder and managing director, had the effect of pulling me back in from working on the business and building the business into resolving a black banana issue. So what we did was we learned how to systemize the factors that would cause a banana to go black. We managed to put systems around it to minimize the risk of it going black. And then we trained up people in the organisation that could handle black bananas issues from start to finish should they arise. And that gave me the freedom to keep going out and building my business. And then over the years, we realised that black bananas is as good an analogy as any for all of those types of problems out there that are small but annoying and have the effect of pulling the business leader, the business drivers back into the business to have them work in the business rather than on the business. And I recommend, if you've got black bananas issues in your organisation that you find yourself repeatedly getting dragged back in to handle, well then put a system around them, train others to handle them, let them off and get on with it. And one way we found of controlling and making sure we stayed on top of black bananas issues is our weekly meeting. We have a meeting every single Monday, and at the weekly meeting on a Monday, the senior team get around and they report to each other really on what's going on in the business. First question we ask is, how many lunches did we supply last week up to last Friday? And the second question we ask is how many complaints did we get? Because I use the MBE way of management, the MBE style of management, which is manage by exception. And I'm not interested in all the lunches that went out there that we got right, because we're expected to get them right. I am interested in the handful that we got wrong. What was the issue? What went wrong? Have we a system in place to handle it? Crucially, is there a pattern perhaps unfolding, a systemic pattern that we need to recognise? But fundamentally, we've put systems around our black bananas issues so that all the stuff that happens on a regular basis gets handled by somebody else other than me. We report about it on a Monday morning, and we drive on for the week in hand. So this particular week, while I was out there, it's very rare that while I'm out there doing my thing, which is working on the business and driving it forward, it's very rare that I would get a call from certain people in the office. And if I do get a call from certain people in the office, I know it's either really good news or it's a significant challenge. And in this last week, while I was out there in the field, I got 2 such phone calls, both of which were significant challenges. And it's really interesting because having supplied 30 million lunches since we started 14 years ago, it's rare that we'd find an issue that's a significant challenge that hasn't been handled before. And in this particular week, whatever was in the water this particular week, 2 challenges of significant nature that required me to come back in. And when issues are significant like that, I as the business leader, and you perhaps as the business leader in your organisation, need to be willing to dive back in. If we're going into uncharted waters, as happened twice in this last week, I must dive in first. I must be willing to dive in first. The issues needed to be handled sensitively, they needed to be handled quickly, they needed to be handled confidently and calmly, and thankfully both issues are resolved. Delighted to report that. They were sort of blips, and they're resolved, which is great. And they will be spoken about at tomorrow's management meeting for sure. And we'll begin to put processes around these 2 issues so that they don't happen into the future. But they were significant, and it required me to come back in and handle them, and that's what I've done. Despite all of the above, I'm delighted to say that it was just one of those strange weeks, and despite all of that, we broke some records. We started 14 years ago and we supplied 150 lunches or thereabouts in our first week of trade, and this week, despite everything that went on, despite the significant challenges, despite the regular black bananas type issues, despite the fact that the team was out there doing the thing, including me out talking to kids, delighted to report that the wonderful Carambola team supplied over 160,000 lunches in 1 week. So happy days. The week has finished well. And so this, one of the strangest weeks I've put down in a long while, I had to live by Admiral Jim Stockdale's words: never lose faith that you will prevail in the end while simultaneously confronting the most brutal facts of your current reality. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. I hope and I trust that you got something from it. The objective of the series is whereby I take snippets from my business journey, many of which are chronicled in my business book, Feeding Johnny, How to Build a Business Despite the Roadblocks. And I put them out there for you to consider in the hopes that they might afford you a shortcut where back in the day I had none. If you've enjoyed it and you think somebody else would benefit, I'd be delighted and honoured if you'd pass the link on out there, either privately or publicly. If it's your first time here and you'd like more of this type of stuff, go to the homepage, ColmO'BrienMotivation.com, leave me your details and we send you a link like this on a weekly basis. Most importantly, please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for the next week or so. And then equally as importantly, please come back next week and let's share another coffee together, thus the name Coffee with Colm. And let's share another coffee together, and I'll put something else out there for you to consider. I hope it won't be as challenging as the last couple of weeks have been. But look, I'll put something out there for you to consider. Meantime, get some good R&R, get some good rest, get some good coffee, take some time out, and then when you're ready, get the head back in the game and get stuck into another week and go make a difference. Cheers. Oh, I love my coffee. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.